Hey, I wanted to let you know I'm starting to pull together the resources for our writing huddle this Friday. I am super excited. But I wanted to share a little bit of my kids' writing, just so that you can hear some of it. Um, I started this thing recently where one of my kids, my 15-year-old, and I sat down and brainstormed. We brainstormed some writing prompts, and then what the kids do is you Google online a random number generator, and so they click that, they put in 1 to however many prompts we wrote, and then the number spits out, and then they go in the chart, and that's what they have to write for the day, whatever that is. I should pull it up so that I can give you some ideas. But I'm super excited as I'm thinking about the writing workshop on Friday, and I thought, hey, it'd be fun to give you kind of a insight into what the kids can do. Eventually, let's see if I have it. Is this it? I should have pulled this up ahead of time. I don't think I have it. Nope. Okay, so that'll be a rabbit trail. So anyway, they're everything from this guy had to, and okay, the way that I do writing prompts for my kids, this is not formal writing. This is just to exercise the writing muscles. So again, they pick a random number, and then that assigns them to the writing prompt. And I will, it'll be part of the workshop where I will give you a copy of those writing prompts. And then they set a timer, and they have 15 minutes to write as much and as fast as they can about that topic. But listen to this. This one, let me see if I can figure out what this was. This guy had to write a story where he had to use the words shovel, pencil, shovel, and I wish I looked up the prompt. I'll let you know, but listen to this. He's my dark one. Listen to this. The sun had set long ago, and the night stars were blocked by the foliage overhead. I grunted as I dragged my burden the last short distance to the clearing. I stepped into the light of the crescent moon that hung overhead and dropped the sack that carried the only thing I had thought about for the last 2 years. I began to think of all the things that had been taken from me by the one inside it. All the life that was so suddenly lost to the past, life that could only be brought to the present by the dwindling power of memory. I made up my mind long ago that this power would not be enough, not for me. I had to take something back, something equally precious to the one who had taken all this from me. But now I'd gotten here, the only thing I could think about was the night sky. It was more beautiful with all its stars than anything that I had ever imagined. Tearing my eyes away from the beauty, I turned them toward the sack once again. It was time to finish what I had started. I started to look around for the shovel that was left here from my last visit. On finding it, I walked back over to the sack. I took my time. I didn't have anything to make it back to anyway. Once I finished digging, I took a step back and stared at the sack. I stood there a long time. I was brought back to reality when I realized that it was starting to get lighter. I reached down, grabbed hold of the sack, and dropped it into the newly excavated hole. I started to fill it with each pile of Isn't it good? Okay, this is like a 15-minute brain dump. Okay, listen to this one. This one I might have to take my glasses off because this guy cannot spell. This one, what was this one? Okay, this is a totally different writing prompt. But this is how does this kind of writing happen? By reading. That's the secret to writing, is reading and brainstorming. The more the kids hear language flowing through them, the more they can pull it out. You cannot write from an empty brain. You have to have a mind filled with words and poetry and language. Listen to this. Father, tell me about your journeys in the north. The father looked down at his son and he smiled. Wrinkles spread across his face. Okay, the first one was written by my 15-year-old and has 0 spelling errors. This one is written by my dyslexic 13-year-old who can't spell for beans, and there's almost no punctuation written in this. But when you're writing to a prompt, you start writing and you don't stop. You don't worry about spelling and you don't worry about punctuation, grammar, tenses, any of that. It's just a brain dump when you're writing to a prompt or when you're writing a draft. So no question about punctuation. So this one's a little bit harder. I actually have to take my glasses off because I have to interpret the punctuation as I'm reading. But again, Father, tell me about your journeys in the north. The father looked down at his son and he smiled. Wrinkles spread across his face. Sitting on the foot of the bed, he locked eyes with his son. Clearing his throat, he started to tell the story. Many years ago, poking his son in the belly, his son giggled with delight. Before you were born, I decided to journey to the northern lands like my father before me. It took a year to find the mountains of the forgotten lands. As I walked over the mountains, I saw many wonders. He paused to tuck his son in the bed coverings. I saw the ancient Phoenix King, Lord of the heavens. I saw trolls and the mighty griffins, M-I-T-Y, griffins. I saw a giant towering over the mountains, but I didn't see a thing that I'd come for, so I pressed on. When I finally got over the mountain range, a vast valley lay before me. The mossy rocks made of mist over the vast landscape. After the valley, there was a forest, so I pressed on to the forest, looking for the peace that my grandfather and my father had both fallen to obtain. When I got to the edge of the forest, a spirit of the forest warned me that all that have entered have never returned. I ignored the warning and entered the forest. A hot breeze passed over me. I felt a powerful presence watching and looking around. I saw no living thing. Then the trees moved, and I looked closer. The trees weren't moving, but a huge creature. It must have been 200 cubits long. A voice entered my mind. The father deepened his voice, imitating the creature. Why have you disturbed me? This writing prompt, oh my gosh, I love it when kids embrace writing. This writing prompt was that he had to write about a dragon, and he had to talk about what the dragon looked like, what it ate, what it was afraid of, that kind of thing. And he goes on to tell the story from the perspective of a dad tucking in his son at bed, telling him a bedtime story about a dragon. How cool is this? This doesn't just happen. Like I said, writing comes from a wealth of rich stories that we have told our kids, that we've read aloud with our kids, or that our kids read to themselves. And all of 5 of my kids are excellent writers. I don't know. I think if I was Emily's kid, I might be an amazing knitter, because you kind of pass on what you love, and I love writing. And so I have my older son weaves tales that are fantastic. My second son is a screenwriter and a very creative writer. My 16-year-old, 15-year-old, and my dyslexic write these fantastic tales that are riddled with punctuation and spelling errors that make literature teachers cry. Like English professors would roll over, and like their red pens would explode in their hands. But I don't care yet about the grammar and the punctuation. See, I want the story to come out. I want the directions to come out, the instructions, the argument, the persuasion. Punctuation and spelling, that's the easy stuff. The creativity and the quoting and the conversational language, these are things that are really hard to teach, but amazingly easy to glean from fantastic literature. So that's kind of like in a nutshell. This is where I'm heading towards the Huddle on Friday, is that, yeah, we can teach our kids how to write and spell and, make sure that grammar, I can't even do it wrong on purpose, make sure the grammar doesn't conflict, make sure you have agreeing verbs all the way through, that you have the same verb tense all the way through. These are things you can learn in high school. You really don't need, you intuitively know excellent grammar if you've been raised around people that speak properly. It's intuitive. You know that if you're going to the lake to go swimming, you don't say, I'm going to the lake to swims with dem friends. You say, I'm going to the lake to go swimming with my friends. You know that, even though you don't know how to necessarily break the sentence apart. My son here, his spelling makes my spelling nerves like go, woo, and it's just crazy. But I don't focus on the spelling. I'm looking for the story. And because I've not emphasized spelling as an issue or grammar, spelling and punctuation as an issue, what's happening is that as he's writing and that creativity comes out, it's unbelievable, the things that he's writing and that he's coming up with. And my plan is I'm making a portfolio of their writing, and then what we'll do is we'll take pieces of these later, and then we'll use a sentence, or we'll use a thought, or we'll use a paragraph, and then we'll use that as a model for, now let's look, this is a fantastic story, this is a fantastic thought, now let's make it grammatically correct so that, remember, the goal is communication, right? Excellent communication in written and oral form. The storytelling part of their systems is coming together beautifully. By the time they graduate high school, I will also have taught them to spell and to punctuate properly. But I'm not in a rush because I want the story to come out. I want them to fall in love with hooking the reader and getting them to continue all the way to the bottom of the page. I want them to pursue writing their fantasy fictions or their poetry or instructions for whatever it is that they're writing. I want them to dive in. And so anyway, that's what this is. I just wanted to share these little glimpses of where you're headed when you take a step back from the curriculum and the mechanics of writing, and you get to the heart. You fill them up with excellent literature. You fill them up with stories. Now, do I read to my kids every single day? No. I actually haven't read aloud in a while, and I need to. But over the course of homeschooling, we have made reading aloud as the core of how we get these thoughts and ideas into our kids' minds. And we do audiobooks. The kids read to each other. They make up fantastical tales as they're playing. My kids still play. My kids are 13, 15, 16, and 20 that still live at home, and they will absolutely grab those play swords and go run around in the backyard. But before they go play, they weave tales like this that are fantastic with backstories and legends and lands to be discovered, and then they go play. It's fantastic. So anyway, I am thinking about this writing thing, and the more I just get prepared, the more I'm excited. So Friday is our huddle. You may not recognize me on Friday because that's the day I turn 50. And I know I don't look 50, but I might look 50 on Friday. Don't be alarmed if I look 50 on Friday because it's my birthday. But anyway, we're going to do the writing workshop. I have it planned again for 3 o'clock Pacific time. One of my kids, no, 3:30 Pacific time. I have to pick up a kiddo at 2:50, and then I will be back and come back on. There's no best time for everybody to meet with the huddle, so I have to do what works for me and then hope that anybody that can't make it live will either come back and watch the replay here, or they'll go to our Huddle portal where you can get all the huddles. So anyway, I'm looking forward to talking with you guys on Friday. I would love to hear your kids' creative endeavors as they write. If they're little, you become the secretary, or you get a tape recorder and you tell the stories there. Don't worry about the handwriting stuff. My kid that wrote about the prompt where he had to write about the shovel and the pencil and something else. I can't remember the whole prompt, but there were 4 things that he had to include in the story. We call him the green giant, the gentle giant. He's like 6'2", 15, and he's always been really big. On the percentile, he has always been in the 105th percentile for height. He's huge, and his body grew faster than his fingers and his fine motor skills. So for years, I was his secretary because his hand couldn't keep up with his thoughts. And when I look at an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old and I say, wow, you should really be able to write this yourself because that's what the textbooks say, then I crush his creative spirit. Instead, thanks to my unbelievable husband, we look forward to, well, what's our end goal? Our end goal is that they will be excellent communicators by the time they graduate high school. So because he's still in high school, or when he was younger, we weren't looking at high school graduation. We were looking at an 8-year-old or an 11-year-old. I had no problem grabbing a pencil or breaking out the typewriter, keyboard, and just typing his thoughts as he dictated them to me. So I want to encourage you, if your kids aren't holding pencils yet, don't stop them from creative writing. But the trick is set a timer and only do it in a short bursts. And both of these kids are begging me, can I go back and finish my story? That's success in writing. Can I please go back and finish my writing? That's success. So anyway, see you guys on Friday. I would love to hear what your kids come up with, and I will talk to you soon. Can't wait to see you on Friday. Bye.